We're back to play Morimens, right? Yes, we are. Yes, we are. We're back to play Morimens. We are going to go through Castor's story in Beyond the Skies Part 1. I haven't played it yet. We're going to run through this and then go through Pollux's story and maybe understand a little bit more about these twins. Let's get started. Chapter 9. We're not there yet. We are far from that. I haven't started chapter 3. I should probably not be doing deep dives and everything else. But anyways, this is a ballad of birds singing to the sky. What does the outside world hold? Is there an end to this horizon? Will there be loyal knights and beautiful princesses? Are there boundless grasslands, mighty steeds waiting? Go and see for yourself. Today, the journey begins. So Castor is a young starry-eyed knight. So is he like a more successful Orgier? The twin Divi shall bear his will to bring the just Lightbearer to the mortal world. The silver one shall bring the innocent to purified land, leading all the righteous to a paradise free of suffering forever. After the Remora operation. I play this game for the story. Plot. Is this the underground area where Cathedra found the cultists? And so is this what were they called? The Cathedral of Light? Church of Light. They were called the Church of Light. Is Castor and Pollux part of the Church of Light? Yes, they are. Being the twin Divi, they are special supplicants meant to usher in the Lightbearer. While we learn about their special status, we are introduced to the church's leading lady, Juliet, who is visually a fantastically designed character. I would personally love to see her and her hounds as an Awakener, though she's absolutely batshit crazy evil. This is also a good time to mention that the Church of the Lightbearers practice human sacrifice and pretty gratuitous forms of torture, so consider this your content warning. The stories of Castor and Pollux I found to be quite intriguing, but they are not light nor for the faint of heart. You have been warned. Damn, they fucking Iron Bull her pretty much. If you don't know what the Iron Bull is, not the Iron Bull, the Brazen Bull. And this is relative because in the scene I just referenced, the Church of the Lightbearers burned a woman alive in a cage. And this reminded me of this real world torture device, which I suspect that they drew some inspiration from, in which it is shaped like a bull, it is hollow, they put somebody inside, lock them inside, cook them, and there's the acoustics of the bull shape their screams into the sounds, what sounds like a bull. It is a horrific way to die, and the creator of it actually fell victim to his own demise within the bull. But this is the level of brutality that the lamp bearers, the Church of the Light Bringers bring. Throughout the rest of the first episode, we're informed that Pollux is really kind of a diva. They feel that they are better than thou, and they flaunt it. Meanwhile, Castor is revealed to be the devoted protector, the older brother, pretty much acting only upon command. Though we quickly find out that Castor truly seeks a better life for both of them and wants to escape. The two are introduced to a mysterious man known as Karnak, whom Juliet holds in high esteem. I personally suspect that Karnak is an alias for N or some similar being within this pantheon that I'm slowly putting together. But what does happen is that Karnak gives Castor exactly what he needs, a pill that feigns death, which gives him the opportunity to spirit Pollux away and hopefully find a better life for them. Castor delivers the pill to a sleeping Pollux and begins the escape process. They do raise some attention as he's like literally carrying them out of the tunnels, but Castor is able to deflect, feigning that the unconscious Pollux has food poisoning. He hides Pollux in some cog crates that are headed for the desert city of Sumerites. Now, we follow Castor back to Pollux's empty bed, where at literally every turn, he has to hide the fact that Pollux is gone. And he also has to time his deception perfectly to make sure that that cargo crate gets out without suspicion. He also is kind of a dick at this time. All who shelter the guilty sure share in their condemnation. Want to experience the punishment of being slowly skinned and having your halt removed. As you can see, this just further illustrates the blatant cruelty that is the standard within the church. Now, Castor does finally try to make his escape. And as he does, he rouses suspicion, and he is first metaphysically attacked by the church. As the text states, it was the incantation used by Lantern to attack the spirit. As he continues to push on, he even gets shot in the back, though through sheer force of will, he perseveres and escapes, literally flying up out of the tunnel into the sky and then diving off of a cliff. He finds himself lost in the desert, but it is a starting place for him to begin his search for his brother, who has now been shipped out in a cargo crate. Castor quickly finds himself lost, starving, and wandering the desert. At least if he's going to die, now he gets to die free. But fate has something different in mind, as he stumbles upon what at first he perceives to be an oasis, but it's actually lowlands with rivers where he meets a rather unlikely companion. Thighs, Miss T. I honestly need to listen to her narrative in-game to get the correct pronunciation, but this lady helps nurse Castor back to health. And the two actually begin to rely on each other, as truly neither is in good health at the moment. As Castor, there's some mentions of seeing like how pale Miss T is, or kind of like how thin she is. But they find a common goal, and that is to reach the city of Clenis on the other side of the desert. Castor can search for his brother there, and Ty can attend to something that she's not initially forthcoming with. But in their travel across the desert to Clenis, Thighs teaches Castor how to survive in this harsh environment. Even at one point, like sticking, essentially making scorpion kebabs and cooking them, like taking the venom glands out, all this different stuff. The story is pretty fun. But that time gets interrupted as the hounds of the church have found them. Thus enters Juliet. And Miss T knows her, which confirms to me that Juliet is a much bigger villain than I initially thought. Though, I really need to play the story more, because, once again, this says we need to be on chapter 9 to really understand the story. And I haven't started chapter 3. But they escape the situation as Ty whips sand around them and then essentially teleports them right outside of Clenis, which is a really cool visual, but also, why didn't you do that before? Arriving in Clenis, we are immediately greeted with shouts of merchants, alluring smells of food, and Castor's ever-pressing need to find Pollux. Ty convinces him that it's better to rest a bit and wait for dark, as that will ultimately limit where they have to look. And little does Castor know that this approach actually helps Ty attend to her true goal. With the transition from day to night, folks transform into these strange zombie-esque plant creatures. They maintain their humanoid form, but branches erupt from the body and seek out those that are not churned yet. From the text, several black twigs stained with flesh were spreading out from the man's 7 orifices. Now, you got 7 on your head. but not all those branches in the alt were erupting from his face. This infection is a growth. It's a branch from the mother tree, something that Thai has direct influence or limited control over, at least. She once planted a seed here, and now it has grown out of control as the mother tree and its offspring have all become corrupted and degenerated, and that is what she is here to do. She is here to stop the corruption, at least in Clennis. So, after this lore dump, they continue to search for Pollux, which takes them into the morn. As the sun rises, the city denizens instantly switch from these bloodthirsty tree corruptions into the normal selves, which is problematic because, like failing a sneak check, the guards spot Castor looking through cargo, because Pollux is in a cargo crate, and move to arrest him. So Castor and Miss T manage to escape, but then we have our story shift perspective as we see Pollux wake up from his cargo crate. Pollux wakes up and flips out with his diva attitude. I think this line sums it up very well. Immediately straightened up and bulked out a loud scold, like an angry cat. The guards handling this cargo are a little confused and still see Pollux as cargo, but he quickly evades them and begins to explore the town while still believing that everyone is below him. This leads to a series of awkward encounters, and even him being accused of stealing food as he misunderstands the gesture of barter as just a strict offering. The guards do close in upon hearing all these shouts, and Pollux once again moves to escape. Meanwhile, we return to Castor and Thighs, sneaking around, trying to find the now roaming Pollux, and they actually close him pretty quick. Pollux, still with his stolen crepe in hand, is actually dragged into the alleyway by Castor. The reunion conversation goes about as well as you would think, as Pollux is still fully indoctrinated at this point. After giving him a rather haughty monologue, Pollux storms off and finds Lightbearer guards that have actually made it to town. But rather than welcome back this prodigal son like he was expecting, the guards are cold and cruel, and they chain Pollux to his confusion. Pollux revolts at this treatment. His dignity doesn't accept that he is no longer seen as important. Shadows are cast over the guards as Castor flies in and saves Pollux. The group once again escapes to the lowlands just outside of town. And as Castor and Ty have already done, Pollux is fed a portion of that corrupted tree. This allows for the plant zombies to recognize them as kin, but not enough for the branches to erupt from them uncontrollably. Here it is where Castor and Ty's part ways, as they are now both solely focused on their missions: the destruction of the sacred seed within Clennis and the safeguarding of Pollux. At this point, the Lightbearers occupy the city in force, and Juliet and her hounds are ever present. Castor has a plan. He leads them into a trap, as the city's denizens transform into these merciless, corrupted creatures at night, and it's a bloodbath. Juliet is very pleased with her students' ingenuity, and if we flash back briefly to when Castor talked to Karnak and got the pill that he was able to use to transport Pollux with, he had received a second one, and taking that now, he's invigorated with power, as he's going to face down Juliet and strike away her power, an implement that she wields. It is a special mirror. Yet, in these last fleeting moments, just before Castor can move, Pollux, who's still indoctrinated, the ever-faithful servant, mortally wounds Castor by punching a hole through his chest, very reminiscent of his own. And as we see that darkness takes over Castor, Pollux returns to Juliet. Beyond the Skies Part 1 concludes. As we open with Pollux's story, we see a very different picture. Pollux and Castor have childlike wonder. Pollux is not a diva, and in fact, he still has his wings and his chest is whole. We find the twins are rifling through a warehouse that is off limits to them within the Church of the Lightbearers. Here, they find a treasure that is going to change the course of their lives. A massive tome, an encyclopedia that encompasses all kinds of records and stories from the Middle Ages. Valiant knights, princesses saved, and evil defeated, all of the epic tales that we seek. This book dominates their interests. During their classroom studies, they speak in a secret sign language that they've created of their favorite stories and muse about creating their own. But these daydreams within the story are interwoven with flashes of pain, of the ritual that Pollux has been chosen for. From the text, excruciating pain, unimaginably severe pain, a pain that felt as if the soul was being torn apart. Pollux has been selected as the bearer of the sacred art, and as you know by the art, that outcome is inevitable. He was bound to the altar, watching his chest being split open. This happens again and again over the course of Pollux's story. The depictions of torture ramp up in Beyond the Skies Part 2, and while I can generalize some of it, there are others that are key aspects of Pollux's story. So here's your final content warning, because it gets worse from here. Now, while Pollux endures this pain, Castor can only watch and really provide mental support. They're happy that the pain is not twofold, that is not inflicted upon them both, but this pain is unrelenting. The text talks about 3 times, 5 times, 11 times. Pollux consistently revisits the altar for this ritual. But despite this, their spirit is not broken. Not yet. And the idea of an escape really begins to form. With escape in mind, the twins work to map out the path of freedom, and then they actually move to escape, and they succeed. With enthusiasm, they begin exploring and trying to survive in the outside world, with their trusted manuscript as their guide. We actually get to see this exploration play out a bit and are treated to these really fun paper cutouts. The mood is brought up so that the descent is so much sharper. As the text states, the newly flying birds do not realize that the seasoned hunter has already aimed his gun at their wings. Their adventure ends, and the birds are put back into their cages. As they are brought before Juliet, and she scolds the twins, she incites punishment upon Pollux. As in their youth, he was more of the driving force behind their disobedience. As she says, "Since these useless wings are so troublesome, perhaps we should simply remove them." And so they do, ripping them off, splattering Castor with blood as he washes powerlessly. And Castor is then punished as he is thrown into the pool of sins, a pitch-black pool not unlike a substance that we've seen across the stories in Morimens. Castor is kept within this solitary confinement. It is dark, silent, and soul-sucking. It states that he cannot move. I believe his corrosion mechanic is actually derived from his time in the pit, but again, that's my speculation. By the time he is finally dragged out of the pool of sin, Castor's wings have been eroded to a horrifying state. Finally out of his prison, Castor is only focused on reuniting with Pollux, but Pollux is now as we've seen him in his art. Miniature wings and a sacred heart within his chest. His personality and his memories have already been fully altered. So Castor's experience is verbatim, though this person still looked like Pollux, he was no longer the brother I once knew. With our backstory in place, we return to Castor waking up from his mortal wound. There are 2 references of his healing, the power of the pool of sin, as well as the skill of the church. Castor's regeneration factor seems to be attributed to the pool, but I'm still a little unsure after moving through the text. Either way, he has a conversation with Pollux and discovers that not only was Thai captured by the Lightbearers, but Castor is now being held for a purification ritual. This ritual takes place in front of a great tree surrounded by those plant-esque zombies, those creatures of the city. And Juliet, ever the conductor of pain, pushes Pollux to perform the purification ritual himself. So this episode ends as she hands him a dagger to begin. Pollux takes this intricate dagger, and Juliet tells him, "This is a tool specially prepared for this purification ritual. You will inscribe the incantation of holy action upon Castor's flesh, praying for the Lightbearer's gaze and forgiveness, that his sins may be released from the depths of his soul." Pollux keeps experiencing little acts of resistance. He tries to push back about the infliction of pain. He still does believe in performing the ritual, but he's seeking to bestow a blessing of the Lightbearer, not this. Juliet, however, is not merciful to traitors. Pollux's resistance so far has put him on thin ice, so he knows that he cannot refuse. "I will carve your holy act onto the limbs of this sinner." And so he begins. While the act itself is heinous, this is really about a mental battle between the two brothers. Castor does accept the punishment, and he has no resentment to his brother. He only wants him to see the truth. And this just continues as it escalates. Pollux's emotions continue to rise and conflict. His inscriptions get more violent and aggressive as he is processing his drama as hate and resentment upon Castor. We see Pollux's angst only grow as, despite the furious torture, Castor's spirit never breaks, it never wanes. Though as the finer incantation is inscribed, we see Castor brought back to a memory of childhood, of when Pollux's wings were plucked, and the helplessness he experienced back then, and the guilt that still haunts him today. But now we look at Pollux, as upon completion of this ritual, Pollux wants to take Castor aside and bandage him. As you can expect, Juliet thinks otherwise, and tells Pollux that he and Castor will fulfill the final mission as twin Divi, dedicating everything to the Lightbearer. Her edict is clear, and this is where they are both going to die. Pollux is in disbelief, but the greater ritual has already started. We can see that the cultists of the church that have congregated at this ritual take blades and slice through their own skin. And there's a mix of cultists and monsters here. The text is a little bit confusing, to be honest, but this line sort of illustrates the effect of the ritual as well. Those flesh and branches melted and dripped like wax, slowly gathering into a swamp of dissolution. Everybody's melting and becoming stuff. It's gross and it's really intense. It paints a really visceral image, but this ritual is crazy. And this is where we see Pollux's sacred heart begin to activate. The ritual is powered by all of these sacrifices, and the twin Divi are supposed to be twisted together into this amalgamation. They can act as a vessel for the Lightbearer upon this plane. But Castor has a contingency plan. We're taken up to a flashback to him planning with Miss T. Should the worst come, Castor will sacrifice himself by activating the corrupted branch within him, breaking the ritual. And so, in this, Castor does activate it. And his body is dissipated into light. It's actually a really pretty effect that they have here. But it is his death that is the catalyst for Pollux to finally remember. We get flashes from his birth, childhood, indoctrination, him trying to remember the truth of Castor despite all of those memories being programmed out. For the finale, we open in the present, tears streaming down Pollux's face as he now remembers everything. While Castor is dissipated, Pollux sees a singular feather. His feather, a token that Castor had preserved many, many years ago when Pollux's wings were taken from him, the last true keepsake of Castor. Juliet interrupts this awakening and orders her guards and cultists to attack Pollux and resume the ritual. Understandably, all of his emotions compound into this transcendent rage. The text is honestly a little confusing about the amount of remaining cultists and guards, but this line gives us an idea of the power of the Sacred Heart, or at least its importance in this ritual. The gentle blessing now completely purified everyone's sins, just as the congregation had prayed. Those dissolution wounds hidden beneath the robes suddenly expanded and soured, releasing black mist, and figures fell before they can even scream. This sounds like wounds instantly festering and releasing the dissolution as black mist. And we see one of Juliet's hounds ready to kill Ty, and then it is thrown dead at Juliet's feet. As Pollux screams, "Pay for your actions!" we see the heart truly power up. As Pollux flipped his hands, a pair of pitch-black giant hands, wrapping the dissolution slime, smashed fiercely towards Juliet. Everyone, our Awakener has finally emerged. Juliet is the eternal manipulator, still tries to buy time in talking to Pollux and demeaning him, but he is not taking her bullshit anymore, and starts the fight with this banger line. "I am the voice of every soul you have broken, the cry of every life you have twisted with your sick desires. The pain you have inflicted upon others now returns to you, blood for blood." The exhilarating fight between the two is briefly mentioned. Juliet is clearly a powerful wielder of the dissolution, and she just continues to belittle Pollux, and with her words, casts a spell. A rope under layers of flesh for years suddenly surfaced, brutally tightening around the artificial heart. This seemingly cripples Pollux, but in an act of defiance, he pulls out the feather that Castor had kept and shoves it. I'm unsure if it's onto his chest or into his heart, but the moment his fingers touched that black heart, a gentle push kept him at bay. The power just integrated into Pollux's body seemed to have a growing soul. In the thorny incantation, the black heart rippled like waves. The dazzling white and black intertwined as the incantation cracked inch by inch. A pair of gigantic black wings unfolded behind Pollux. The twins had finally come full circle, united in one body, but on their terms, not Juliet's. Pollux, now an angel, like the sacred and majestic messenger in the scripture, delivering judgment from his God. More banter, more battle between Pollux and Juliet's hounds, a battle that Juliet is losing. A hurricane swept through the dissolution, surging it up into a black tornado, violently lifting Juliet into the sky, only to slam her back to the ground. These visuals are fantastic. As Juliet is facing defeat, we finally look back towards Thies, who is attempting to fulfill her mission. It was Miss T's power that kept many members of the church at bay, and as she returns the corrupted tree to the seed that she had planted before, that power that's keeping everyone at bay wanes, and the church floods into the area. In this moment, rather than complete his revenge, Pollux saves Ty and launches into the air. Juliet wants them hunted down, of course, but Karnak, the mysterious man from their childhood, now reappears. "Oh dear, why must you go to such extremes, Miss Juliet? A lone Divus is of no use anymore. This performance is coming to an end. If you're not satisfied, prepare well for the next great show." This language just further suggests to me that Karnak is N. But Pollux brings ties to the desert and states that they should part ways. Before they do, Miss T has a gift for him and touches his heart. The black wings disappear and return to their original owner as Castor is reconstituted behind him. And the story closes with this. They are brothers, twin birds, each other's one and only best friends, and fellow prisoners tormented by fate. Finally, at last, nothing will separate them again.